or the copyright of the image to the journal. So I think it's important when you're publishing things and you may have your own original work, understand the rules around that depending on the journal. Because I was like, I did this, and like, nope, I couldn't just put it in. I had to ask permission to use it on a separate paper to use my own work because I had already given that copyright to the journal that it was published in, just FYI. And a lot of times when you go to conferences, you sign off your rights too, we just don't realize it. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to do some best practices for the review the Metaportal website, review other publications. I see something in the chat. I see. It's great to spend 2 days with it. Thank you. Other publications, use open access material, create your own materials, how to get permission. You can purchase materials. I've purchased things online, and is it necessary? So this is the Metaportal. This is Metaportal website. You can see here they have a lot of specific instructions. I guess I'm looking for a pointer. Can you see the pointer? I hope so. Preparing and submitting scope, submission standards, your ESR. They talked about that already. Open access Creative Commons licensing. This is they're going to talk about your images. Publication ethics for authorship, conflicts of interest, ethical approval, informed consent, funding support, plagiarism and misconduct. Be very careful. You can plagiarize yourself, which is something I didn't realize, meaning you can write something that you wrote before and it's a plagiarism of yourself. Just be careful on that too. Duplicate publications. And again, here is open access and Creative Commons licensing, very important, and its submission standards. They tell you about images and what they expect. So here it is, citation, attribution, and permission. The following table outlines what should be properly embedded contents, image, charts, and figures. Most times figures we create ourselves, but images and charts we tend to get from other places. So if it's something that's web-based, it's either the author-owned, so you have to make sure this is author-owned and cite that it's author-owned, or non-author-owned, it's an image by used with permission. So if you have something that you're using that you didn't get off the web, say I got something from like JP that he created, I have to basically say this image by .jp Sanchez used with permission. Important, because they're going to look for that. Now, most of us get our things off the web. If it's copyrighted, we have to also put all the copyright information in there. Retrieve from this URL on this date, permission received from owner. And some things are public use, some things aren't public use, and that's where the copyright comes in. Creative Commons, image by owner, retrieved from URL on this date, Creative Commons license associated. So normally people upload their images online, they affiliate certain licenses with it, and it gives you, is it public domain? Do you need to have permission? And some images you cannot edit. So some images you have the ability to edit, and will tell you that when you're getting it off the Creative Commons that you can edit this image. You still have to attribute the original work to the artist or whoever put it up there, but you can edit it. But not everything off the internet is editable. It's really important, and that comes into licensing. And public domain or governance side, this is image by owner, retrieve from this image is public domain. Public domain means it's open to anyone. You can use it. Use Metaportal has a third-party content permission form to gain permission, and they will not take the image unless you have that permission form. Sorry, my watch is telling me something. And it has to be equal to or less restricted than a Creative Commons license. So I like Creative Commons a lot because it has a license right then and there. You know what you can and can't use. I tend to prefer to use things in the public domain because then it's just open to anyone to use at any time, and I don't need permission for that. Trying to move forward. So for example, looking at this image here, trying to get my pointer going, my apologies. Looking at this image here, you can see at the bottom of the screen, image by Brad C. Smith, retrieved from Wikipedia on September 26, 2019, Creative Commons license associated here. So this is what you need when you're submitting to Metaportal with any image. You need to have something similar to this. This tells you who did the image, where the website you got it from, what date you downloaded it, and what's the licenses associated with it. Same thing here. You're looking at another slide. We have image by Portosenesis in English Wikipedia, retrieved from Wikimedia on September 9th, images public domain. So notice the difference here. This says license associated with Creative Commons. Hopefully you can still see what I'm doing. Let me see, arrow, pen. License associated with Creative Commons, whereas this one specifically says public domain. In essence, anyone can use it at any time point. So you don't need to get permission. This one has a license affiliated with it. And they're different. Like it says here 2.0, and it will tell you and explain what that means. Doesn't mean you can edit the image, doesn't mean you have to use the image as is. So when you go to Creative Commons, it will tell you all those things. So this is Creative Commons or Wikimedia Commons. You can go in here and just type in what you're looking for. You could look for a physician or a plant or a flower or food or typical foods, and then they will tell you what the license is on that. As I mentioned, it will tell you it's like CC 2.0, 3.0, and it will tell you what you can do, use it as is or modify or edit if you so choose. But I like to use this very much because it's open access for publishing, and you can just type what you're looking for and you can bring it up, and then you have the license information right then and there. So here is an image that was created by Glenn Garcia. As you see here, image created by Glenn Garcia on September 22nd, 2019. He created this, so he put it in himself. That was author owned. Again, as I mentioned, when you're publishing, sometimes the journals that we sign the different documents will take copyright over for your image. So I'm not sure where this image got published, but it's possible that Glenn won't be able to use this again without getting permission from the journal where it's published. But this is author owned. So to give you the difference here, author owned, this is public domain, as you can see, and this has a license affiliated with it. So written permission, MetaPortal requires a proof of permission, including copyrighted materials and submissions. They will not accept any external documents or statements. They have their own permission form that you have to use as adequate permission for a site of third-party content, even stock images, which you can see online, and require that you use this MetaPortal third-party consent form to meet this requirement. In lieu of a signed permission form, they will accept a signed official statement by the owner of the material or company that identifies the material by name and explicitly gives the author permissions to use the material in their submission. The following statement should be used: I, X, grant author name permission to use the name of material in the submission to MetaPortal, an online open access journal, which will be published under our X Creative Commons license. If neither the permission form or email template is available, please remove the material from your submission. So a big issue that happens when people submit to MetaPortal, a lot I've seen, and JP can talk to this, is people submit with all these images and all these, things, and then they basically it's like, we can't use this at all. I got to get rid of it. Like YouTube videos, you cannot use because YouTube videos are not, they're in perpetuity. They can change. So if you submit, if your presentation is a YouTube video, you need to figure out something else to do to use it. JP, any comments? Is he online?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this is the form that you want to use. Remember that I showed a photo where people's eyes were covered. Instead of searching for photos on the internet, just take your own photos. And then as you're taking photos of individuals, have them sign the form right there, right? So keep your life simple, because sometimes you'll spend 5 hours to find a photo on the internet when you could have just walked into the hospital and taken a photo of like a room or something like that. You can't take photos of patients in your hospital without permission. Often in working with communications, they'll agree to use this form. But on the street, friends, family, you could just use this permission form.
In some cases, if you notice, you go to conferences, they may say, by attending this conference, you're giving us permission to use your image somewhere. So you may actually sign these forms sometimes when you're going to like your medical conferences, or they'll have signs up saying you're giving us permission. Like when you're registered for the conference, you have to sign that you're giving them permission to use your image if needed. So that's why you may see yourself pop up in an advertisement. You're like, wait a second, I don't recall giving. But you generally, when you're registering for medical conferences, there's something in that registration where you have to give permission to utilize your image if they see fit. Or they may just have signs up saying, by coming into the space, you're giving us permission, FYI.
But I think mistaken, when you start, most medical schools and residencies have similar waivers of usage of your image, because just you being in the hospital in the professional setting, they still take documentation of that sometimes.
Yes, so that you're giving consent on, you're not signing a piece of paper, but you're just by being there, you're giving consent. So it's important to really note those things. Because I think I was doing a presentation where I was presenting at one of the GI conferences, and I said, let me just read what they're sending me to sign, which I tend not to do. And I remember I was reading, no, it wasn't that. I apologize. I was doing a colon cancer awareness thing with a company, and I was reading the consultation form that they sent me, and I was like, and I saw something that said we can use your image and modify it as we see fit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was kind of like, no, 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 no. And normally when I do consultations with companies, and you're getting paid for this work, I just sign and send it back to them. I don't actually read it all the time. But I read that one section. I was like, so they're telling me that they can take my image at this conference, which we're doing, and use it in any way, modify it as they see fit, and use it for anything for the company. And I actually emailed them and saying, you have to take this out. I'm not giving permission for this. because I don't know what they're going to take my image and use it for. I don't know. But so we don't read a lot of things, I think, because we just sometimes just sign because you have all this paperwork. But I've started being a lot more diligent about reading, because in that instance, I was not comfortable with the fact that they just could use my image carte blanche and modify it as they see fit. That was something I was just like, I said to them, I know this is your standard contract, but I'm not comfortable with this. I need you to take this out and send it back to me again. That kind of went off the kilter there. So here's another thing. So here's the acknowledgements. We thank Flyticon for the access and use of their vector icon. So this is something in the last page of academic medicine. The references are here, accessed on February 18th, and the author, and you could tell break. So this came from the academic medicine. They're utilizing it in a slide. And here they said, acknowledge the author for access, and they put the reference paper where it came from. And the fact they use these icons, important to note. That's it. This was actually a very quick presentation. It wasn't many slides. So I think you're back on track, JP. I was supposed to end at 4:15, so you have a 15-minute. Yep. Any questions, comments?
That template for getting permissions, is that on the MedEd portal website like the ESR templates were earlier? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the images, like the screenshot